So Exabeam has launched the XDR Alliance, and I guess XDR, for those that aren't familiar with it, stands for Extended Detection and Response. So I guess the obvious place to start is what was the thinking behind it? What was the need for creating it? And I'm guessing, you can correct me or tell me if I'm right, that there's a lot of confusion out there for end users of cybersecurity, and maybe there is a need for some guidance, some objective guidance, for end users.
That's exactly it. In fact, I joke around saying that if you ask 10 people, what does XDR stand for? What is it? The definition and the approaches. If you ask 10 people, you will get 11 different answers. And that's really problematic for the industry, because now the CISOs are genuinely taking a look at these type of solutions, and it is very, very confusing for them. It's who screams the loudest. And one thing that we have observed is that it seems that every vendor has a self-serving definition for what XDR means and what that entails. And those self-serving definitions are really based on the portfolio that this vendor has to offer to the market. So because the X in XDR stands for extended, it's really, the expression is it takes a village to provide detection and response across the extended organization. Then it is really up to the same village to define approaches to XDR that are open, inclusive, and collaborative. And the thought process was to get that village together so that all of us jointly together were able to offer an approach to XDR in terms of the definition, the framework, the methodologies, in order to try to pierce through the noise, and in order to try to have a voice of reason in this very crowded marketplace.
Okay, so in terms of who you've engaged with so far, I'm guessing the idea, you're whether people are competitors or offer complementary solutions, you're trying to get as many vendors together to work towards some sort of common goals and objectives. So what's been, I guess, in terms of the vendor take up, where are you at the moment?
So I think the broader and very long-term goal is indeed to get as many vendors as possible. For now, we want to be very intentional in the way we build this alliance. And you will notice that it's not a bunch of vendors that are random vendors. It is really more a category approach to building this alliance rather than a vendor approach. And if you look, we have several categories of vendors that are involved in building this inaugural, the founding members are actually members in very important categories in the XDR. So the endpoint category, the network category, the cloud, the IoT and OT category, the email security, as well as representative from the service provider community. And then Exabeam is an analytics, SIEM, XDR engine category, if you will. So it's not about getting as many people as possible. It's really about thinking, okay, what are the different categories that are important to provide detection and response for an organization? And those are the categories. And then once we identified the categories for the inaugural members, then it was about, okay, well, who is really a thought leader? Who is really pushing for this type of solution? Who is willing to work in a very open, collaborative, and inclusive way? And that's how we landed on this set of inaugural vendors. There's going to be subsequent phases in which we will add other categories and with members in each categories. And then that's how we plan on growing this thing. But we want to do this very intentionally.
Okay, so if I'm right, the major sort of initial objective of the Alliance is to develop a model for extended detection and response. And the 3 tiers are data sources, control points, I got here, then the actual XDR engine itself, and finally content. So perhaps can you give us a sort of expanded view of each of those parts of the solution?
Sure. And I think that's one of the first deliverables for the XDR Alliance, is to come up with this model that's a 3-tier model. You see several models that are competing out there, and I think the three-tier model really acknowledges the reality of what is happening in organization. There is already a set of extended technologies that are already deployed in organizations, and those are the telemetry generating equipment. So think network and cloud and endpoint and email security. And those have a dual role. For one, they generate data, so it's logs, it's context, it's alerts, and that feeds into the engine. The role of the engine is to collect these data points from all corners of the organization, then do the detection, do the investigation. The tool should be doing the bulk of the investigation by itself without much human involvement. And then the response. The response is really very often it's an enforcement for a decision that the engine is making. And once that decision is made, then the engine goes back to that same or different, but to those same technologies and solutions to ask the solution to do something. So it could be knocking an endpoint of the network. It could be terminating a process inside of an endpoint. It could be to reconfigure a particular device. So there is that feedback loop between those technologies on the left and those solutions that are already deployed in organization. On the one hand, they generate and send telemetry and alerts to the engine. On the other hand, the engine reaches back for enforcement for some of these decisions. And I think what's also important is really the third leg in this three legs tool, which is the content. The content is very important for the XDR to fulfill its promise of being a very easy to use solution and technology. For us to achieve a short time to value, for us to achieve a great and easy operationability, you really need content in order to feed the kind of that middle engine. So that engine is fed with all the data that's coming from all the data that's really important coming from the organization to solve use cases, the content, and it's really together that the engine is capable of making the decision and reaching back to the technology stack in the organization.
Okay, and just to clarify, this model, is it of use both to vendors, as it were, to collaborate to produce sort of end-to-end extended detection and response, and also to end users to understand how they can either use, as you've referenced, they may well have existing parts of this solution and what's missing to put together a comprehensive solution. So is it both for vendors and end users?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, the vendors are there together, working together in the XDR Alliance for the benefit of the end user. I think the main goal, the main guiding principle for the XDR Alliance is to help the end user, is to help acknowledge the fact that it's very confusing right now for the end user, that the function of providing detection, investigation, and response for an organization is something that is really, really hard. And the vendors are there to help make that a reality. I was at Gartner, I was a Gartner analyst for many years. And one of the things that we were talking about at Gartner is people process technology. In order for organization to realize the value of extended detection and response, you need people, process, and technology. And the technology, the vendor set is there to really empower the different processes that are happening. And that's also the goal of the XDR Alliance, is to help define some processes, some methodologies, and a framework to better and easier achieve more easily detection and response across the enterprise, across the organization.
Okay, and once that has been done, or alongside that, other activities, I'm wondering, I mean, will you go as far as sort of badging up approved multi-vendor solutions, for example? Is that something you get involved with? Best practice guides, and maybe just more generally end user education activities? What other things do you have in the pipeline, I guess?
Yeah, so there's really two main aspects to the charter of the XDR Alliance. One is really about education and awareness of the marketplace about what is XDR and the fact that, again, XDR should be open, inclusive, collaborative. And it may sound obvious, but again, there are some corners of the universe that are not thinking that, and so it's important to reiterate that that approach and that open stance of collaboration. So that's the first aspect, education and awareness. The other one is really to help better solutions, and help better solution is achieved via technical and technology integrations, right? So how can we all better integrate together? Where is the 1 + 1 = 3, 1 + 1 + 1 = 5, and etc., as we all work together collaboratively on this? It could be helping each other on sharing intelligence, helping each other with sharing best practices, or helping each other define better APIs. Again, between the engine and those technologies already deployed in the organization, the conversation is usually going along the lines of, okay, I'm able to generate this raw telemetry. Is this useful to you? Do you need anything else? Are we missing anything? And that's a very interesting dialogue. On the side of the engine, the question is, okay, these are the capacity that I have to collect the information. Do I need anything else? Do you have rich telemetry that would be useful that for some reason I'm not capable of bringing or learning or interpreting or understanding? So it's really through this collaboration, and the same on the back end of that loop. Okay, I made the decision that I need to do such and such action. How can I instruct your technologies, to do this thing? What are the capabilities? What are the enforcement action that you can make available to me? So all of that technology integration is also a very, very good example of the type of activities for the charter in the XDR Alliance.
Okay, and in terms of engaging with folk, you said obviously you're starting with targeted, I guess, membership. But if other vendors are interested and also end users are keen to get involved or understand how, what's available to them, are you sort of happy for people to contact you, or is it still you're sort of waiting to sort of phase 2, I don't know, in 12 months time, or how can people engage, I guess?
So the best way, if for those vendors or organizations or service providers or end clients and CISOs who want to get more involved, the best way would be to go to the website. And in the website, there is an application button, a process. And you can reiterate your interest in joining the XDR Alliance by applying to become a member there. And the website is xdralliance.com. So just go to the website, and there is an application process for that. Again, it's not by invitation only, but we want to be very careful. We cannot open the floor doors just yet. So, please let us know if you're interested. We will definitely take that into account as we build the different phases of the XDR Alliance.
And in terms of its cover, I mean, these days, by default with the internet, I guess everything is pretty much international, but you are covering the globe, or is it only available in North America and or Europe? I mean, what's the sort of presence at the moment?
So again, because we want to have a careful approach on how we build this, we don't want to have this become a free-for-all. For now, we're starting with a focus on North America. So one of the requirements for the vendors is for the vendors to have presence in North America. And we will be opening, by the same token that we are opening more and more categories of technologies, we will be opening more and more geos and regions further down the road. For now, we want to be careful in the way we build this alliance. And so for now, the phase 1 and even phase 2 will be on a focus of you need to be able to do business in North America.
Okay, and maybe I know predicting things, we've all learned in the last 12-18 months, predicting anything is a little bit of a difficult activity. But if we were to get back together in a year's time, which would be good. I mean, what would you hope to have achieved? You know, you've obviously got that three-tier model, which hopefully would be defined. What would you hope? Yeah, where would you hope to be in a year's time?
I would hope for at least some of the basic aims of the XDR Alliance to be achieved, and namely that the industry does recognize Open XDR as being the proper way to go about having an XDR in the industry. Again, it's about being open, collaborative, and inclusive. So to have achieved that, people are saying, yep, there might be other flavors of XDR, but the proper way to go about solving XDR is by being open. That would be the first one. The second one is to have had technology integration that were driven and kind of nudged by the XDR Alliance. And again, it's about 1 + 1 = 3, and 1 + 1 = 5, and those kind of fuzzy math. And obviously, Exabeam is very interested in helping and developing and improving our posture and our tools via this alliance. But if that can be between, say, an endpoint vendor and a network vendor, and Exabeam is not part of that, then it's great. I think everything that is customer focused, that is end client focused, when the end client gets more value, I think that would be great achievement. And I'd love for the XDR Alliance to be a catalyst and a framework to help achieve that collaboration.
Okay, well, it's been great chatting to you, and I mean, I can see the use of it, because I have to say, cybersecurity does my head in. You know, as you say, there are so many solutions, so many vendors, and they're all coming at slightly different angles. So an attempt, as you're doing, to sort of bring some clarity to that has got to be good news. So I wish you every success, and thanks very much for talking to us.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for your kind words, and maybe we can have another chat in 12 months and you know, see where we are. I'd love to do that.
Yep, that would be lovely. Thanks again, Gorka. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.